Hey everybody, my name is Chris Massimo, otherwise known as a therapist at law, and I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about classroom environment for law school for those of you who are interested in going. Okay, so I think I'm going to do this by kind of breaking down my experience from 1L, 2L, and 3L. I'm currently a 3L, 4 weeks away from graduation. Thanks, big man. Appreciate that. But I'm going to break down my experience, but then I'm going to talk more generally, I think, about law school class environments on the whole. So my first year coming into law school was the COVID year. It was 2020. So as you can imagine, there were some things that were incredibly different about the classroom environment than standard 1Ls. But there are also things that were pretty standard. I've been a TA the last 2 years, academic support TA for the 1Ls that came in 2 years ago and the 1Ls that came in this past year. And there are definitely some similarities as well between what I experienced and what they experienced. Okay, so what are those? Well, one thing I would say is that there's kind of like a try hard feeling to 1L. There's a little bit of hazing, if you will. I wouldn't shy away from calling it that. I think there's kind of like, hey, welcome to the big leagues feeling, right? Both from the professors and from the students. From the professor side, you are going to be cold called. A cold call, you've seen the movies and TV shows, and don't get me wrong, again, most of this is different than the movies and TV shows, but like you've seen the movies and TV shows, you're going to get cold called. And when you get cold called, you're going to be expected to answer the questions for an undetermined amount of time. So for example, my first year in civil procedure, I was asked to stand for 45 minutes and field questions for my professor. And again, that is not common. 45 minutes is not common, but maybe I was doing a good job. I don't know. But 10 minutes, not uncommon, right? First year, you have big classroom sizes. Everybody's taking the same courses in your 1L cohort. And they're going to ask you questions. And they're going to expect for you to be ready for class. And I think what they're trying to do, I get the rationales, they're trying to get you to take reading seriously, because that first year is where you really learn how to read the law and break it down, at least in terms of case law. Okay, so I think that I think the idea is to create angst, and that angst will encourage you to go the extra mile in preparation for class. I get that, but as you get into the higher levels, if you get 2L and 3L, I'll talk about how that's different. So that's generally how 1L is. You have a couple of you have a couple of professors who will do that, but you do have try-hard students that will overextend themselves, thinking that in law school, if you get the professor to like you, that makes a dramatic difference. They don't know who your finals are anonymous. They don't know who you are. But you'll get a couple of those, especially in 1L. People trying to get exactly the right answer, and it really slows down and bogs down the class, and it's very annoying. Okay, 2L year. Get your 2L year. Congratulations. Now at Texas A&M, there's two classes we have to take our 2L year: professional responsibility and constitutional law. Besides those two classes, you can start taking whatever you want. So with that comes choosing professors based on, if you want, their class environment, right? So I always went with the professors that would focus on the material, and I'll get generally to the different types of professors, but I always went with the professors that focused on the material. They didn't do a lot of cold calling, because the cold calling slows down class. Why have a student explain it to you in 15 minutes when you can explain it to me in 5, and we can get more law here? My opinion was always, I'm paying to be here. I'm learning from experts. I want to learn from you. I don't want to learn from the student. That is my view. So 2L year, you finally get that like freedom to go and do, for the most part, what you want to do with who you want to do it. And that's wonderful. So that totally changes the dynamic. And you're also going to start getting more like-minded people who study or are interested in the things that you're interested in. I'm a business law guy. Post-grad, I'll be doing corporate law and real estate law on the transactional side primarily. And that's my jam. I've been doing real estate I've done over a year, almost a year and a half of real estate. I haven't done any corporate law yet. Well, that's not true. I've done some with the Texas Rangers. I currently work for the Texas Rangers. So I've done some facets of corporate law with them, but I've only been with them for 3 months. So that's newer to me. But I was always interested in business law. So I got to start taking classes that were related to business law. And that definitely changes the environment. A, because, the professor is like-minded like you, but B, because your peers are as well. 3L years is just the same thing as 2L, to be honest. There's not much to update you on there. You just keep choosing the classes that you want with the professors that you want, and it is much better. Okay, now generally speaking, there's two types of professors that you should be aware of. The first type of professor takes the PowerPoint and the material they want to cover, and they ram through it. They just go. That's my preferred type. The second type of professor is a professor that will get the information and sometimes tangent off and not really cover what needs to be covered. They may have a great personality. For the most part, there is one professor in particular I love who does this, but for the most part, that wasn't the professors that I enjoyed. You don't get the random, non-existent, at least in my experience, the third type of professor, which is the, hey, we're gonna debate each other in class. Hey, we're gonna talk about hot topics. We don't talk hot topics. We rarely talk about what's actually happening in the real world. Again, you have one professor who does that, who also tangents, who's wonderful. But besides that professor, we don't talk about hot topics. You're not going to be debating with your classmates about what's happening in the real world related to that particular type of law right now. It's not going to happen. So there's also two types of students. The first type of student is the one that's just trying to hang on, that's typing as fast as they possibly can in some instances, depending on the prof. And that goes well with the first professor. That's me, I type very fast. The second type of student is, in your 2L and 3L year anyway, is the student who comes in and is like, well, my 1L grades weren't as good, and they kind of throw in the towel. Law school is very hard, very hard. And I think after that first year, if you lose the light at the end of the tunnel of getting a certain ranking, a lot of them cash it in. That's right. So they'll be scrolling through Nike or Amazon or whatever, chilling in class. What you don't get is the third type of student, just like that imaginary third type of prof. You don't get that third type of student who's just overly obnoxious. Very rare. Very rarely, maybe in slight instances and occasions, but very rarely do you get the obnoxious student. It's mostly just, hey, let's kick this along. We're either really tired and we can't keep up, or we don't want to be here because it's hard. So that's generally speaking what the law school environment is like. So to conclude, I want to make sure I emphasize this ain't Suits on TV. They didn't even have they didn't have class in Suits. But it's not TV, and it's a great show. It's not TV and it's not movies. It's much more relaxed for the most part. You will be cold called. You will be put on the spot. You will be expected to perform. But it's fewer and far between where that will be called upon you. So it's overall, it's kind of relaxed. Bring your hands ready to type very quickly in some instances, and you'll be fine. So hopefully this was helpful for you. If you have any comments or things you want me to talk about, leave those in the comment section below. I'd very much appreciate it. And as always, I will see you next time.